How you doing? You okay?
I'm very well, thank you, Luke. How are you?
I am good, thank you very much. Fresh off the back of a little brief ski getaway, so apologies I had to delay our chat last week.
No problem.
Perfect. So first and foremost, thank you very much for getting behind the incentive. I know obviously how busy you are at the moment over there, and I know we've had to have quite a few of these calls because for technical things, the presentation today. But thank you for getting the time, and really excited to hear your viewpoint and what Delta Cosworth are doing and the journey that business has been on with yourself there. So I suppose, do you want to start with a brief introduction to yourself, just so our listeners know who they're ultimately listening to today?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Graham Martin. I'm Development Director at Delta Cosworth, age 39, live in Northampton, just up the road from Silverstone, and petrol head and fanatic for anything related to engineering and automotive technology. Sorry, I'm a petrol head, but I do work in the electric vehicle sector, but that's okay. I think that's all right.
Yeah, it's the evolution of the automotive field, really, isn't it? To be honest, as a
It is.
petrol head, the combustion engine is the leading thing on doing it. But the way the innovations is, it looks like that's going to, I don't know, hopefully be removed forever, but not have the same demand of the market it once had. So it makes sense. I can feel there's a lot of people with your pain too.
And pleasure, I must add. Yeah.
I'm pleasure, yeah, of course, the things the electrification offers to the world and stuff like that. But okay, we'll jump right into it. We'll start with getting personal,
Yeah.
which is great from that side there. So let's jump with going off from there. Do you want to give a brief overview of who you are outside of work and
Hmm.
what do you enjoy doing, I suppose, when you're not working?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always had itchy feet and love constantly be doing something and developing something which normally involves some sort of engineering, electrical and mechanical. Like to play badminton, bit of cycling, and love motorsport. Love rebuilding cars. So the first slide really is the show of my sprint car, my Subaru, which is one of my main passions really. And my engine build that I've done. Well, many people will tell you several times over now because I've blown a few of them up, but that's all part. Uh,
Yeah,
and yeah, just enjoy anything that has any element of I suppose engineering behind it. Really, to be honest, hands on, love tinkering.
of course, yeah. That passion that comes through taking things apart, isn't it? And rebuilding and trying to improve is a continuous factor, definitely from your passions in life. I can see that. But okay, well, that
Yeah.
teases us on perfect to the next question. So, do you have any particular passions or hobbies or anything like that at all that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see, really on the slide, but my main passion actually is getting out on the weekends and going racing. I've been doing that since I was about 14, and spent a lot of time in my garage. In fact, my parents and my neighbours fell out because I spent so much time in the garage making so much noise. Actually, when I was 17 years old, as you do, because you don't give a monkeys about what goes on with anybody else. You just care about what you're doing when you're that young. So motorsport. And then one of my other passions is a game called airsoft. Actually, bit of a big boys toy type of thing. But actually, what's really good fun about it is two things. You're out and about getting some exercise, which is good. We spend a lot of time in engineering now, sat behind a computer and not stretching legs. So it's great to go out on a weekend and get some steps. And then the second thing is, as the bottom right hand picture shows on this slide, but really the inner workings of an airsoft gun are quite complex. There's
Hmm.
electronics, there's mechanical parts, and of course you can do upgrades, tweaks, all sorts of stuff to them. So actually, it's a great way to get yourself into the electromechanical mix and get yourself started doing those sorts of things. So I quite like tinkering. As I said before, love doing stuff with my hands. And of course, who doesn't want to legally throw fireworks at somebody else? One of the things you can do if you go and play airsoft. So yeah, good fun. Great passion of mine.
It looks like a fantastic sport, to be fair. When I was young, I used to play paintball a little bit here and there, but I've not done. But I believe this is one of the new things that's pressing the place. So I think I've been speaking to the team, and it's something I think we're definitely going to try. From what you've said, I'm just looking at these pictures alone, it looks fun. But also, I like the fact that as well as doing that, it just shows another example of that passion of an engineer who loves to technically improve on doing it and to be able to tinker and improve the efficiency of your own weapons. It's just side by
Absolutely.
side, again, and makes complete sense. So fantastic. Okay. Well, let's move into the next section of Be Yourself, I guess. brief overview about your education and what you did, I suppose, before you started working in the automotive field.
Yeah, so I grew up. When I grew up, I was really into computer games, and at the age of 14, I'd steal my dad's PC when he wasn't using it for work, and I'd be playing the games that I could, when we could get our hands on it. So they were the early days of like Pentium 486 and like 8 megs of RAM and that sort of stuff. So we'd play things like the original Toka touring cars, and then we'd go and have to upgrade a 3D graphics card as the next one come out because we didn't have the computing power to play it properly. So that was all good fun. So I thought at that point, I thought really I had a mix of interests. I was interested in driving and I was interested in computing. So I actually chose ultimately after college to go do a computer science degree at University of Portsmouth. Got into year 2, found it disastrously boring. Some of it found it disastrously boring, and decided actually to revisit the idea of doing something that was more driving, engineering related, automotive. So that's where Glyndŵr University came in, and what really sold the degree to me, albeit it's a very unknown university and not a very sort of pedigreed degree, what sold it to me was the fact that they were willing to not only sponsor me to do rallying, which I was into at the time, 17, 18 years old. I was mad keen on going out on the weekend and going rallying. But they give me a space in the workshop so that I could keep my car there, work on it, in between lectures, and basically run a rally team out of the university and be sponsored by them. So yeah, absolute no-brainer. So yeah, spent 4 years there. Sorry, doing the engineering degree to get a BSc.
Yeah.
And then flick to the next one if you want, because
sorry,
all right, no problem. Because then I was really into obviously the rallying side of things. So I was doing a lot of that a lot of these pictures are from the university workshop, but we completely rebuilt my Peugeot 205 rally car at the time.
So was that actually your own car? So I never knew from previous chat. That was actually your car you brought in, and then you improved university, and then into rallies with the sponsorship of the university built the team. Okay, so I missed that previously. That's fantastic. I've never heard of university do that before.
To be honest, I was the first at Glyndŵr to actually make that workshop sing. I think, from what I understand, because before they were kind of static cars that were in there, and we hadn't. That you do a bit of tinkering with the students, but not a lot of students at that age have a lot of motivation, and I was mad keen on motorsport, mad keen on getting out and doing stuff, to the extent where not only did I do my own rally car, but I fixed the other cars that were in the workshop and got them out and going, and I would take students out on track days with their own cars. So with the university, they had a Westfield with I think it was a Mega Booster engine in it.
Wow.
And so we'd go out and go and take the students on track days with the Westfield Mega Booster, which was incredible, great
fantastic
fun. Yeah, absolutely. And so that got me into building the car and doing electronics on that. Really got me the sort of backbone of interest in both the engineering, but also the sort of software side, electronic side. It was pretty basic. Obviously, my 205 rally car was running on carburetors, but I had an electronic ignition system that I was fitting to it, and that's where I kind of got into understanding about the software integration with hardware, and how you might then sort of control things with that software.
Wow, well, yeah, fantastic, and definitely I was saying great thing from the university, and fantastic the passion to do it. And it seems obviously you're doing the theory, but it seems like the opportunity offered you was extremely hands-on as well, which is fantastic on all doing it, which is great. Okay, so fantastic education. Obviously, really enjoyed your time there. Obviously, ran the rally team, which is fantastic. Graduated for yourself. What was the next steps from there? Like, I suppose, why the automotive industry? What led you to develop a career in that space from there?
So off the back of obviously running my own rally car, learning a little bit about sort of the electronics and integration with electronics, I then jumped out of university, and I ended up buying an old Subaru off of a friend of mine, and got an mappable ECU, so got an aftermarket ECU that I could play with. And instead of taking it somewhere to get it mapped, I started to learn to do it myself. I mean, this is a real trick, because it was what we call a GEMS ECU at the time, and the GEMS ECU was not easy to understand. So it was great fun to get your hands on, to play around with stuff, to break things, as I did, of course, as you do when you're learning.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to a local business that did Subaru engine rebuilds and was a specialist. And they actually asked me, so this was to buy a part for my car that I'd just broken something on and needed to fix.
Yeah.
And they actually asked me, "Oh, do you want to have a go at mapping one of our cars?" And I kind of went, "Well, no. I'm only doing my own, and I'm not that good at it yet." And so they were like, "No, come on, have a crack." So they rented a dyno for me, and I went up and tuned their car for them. Got some good results,
Nice.
and then it just sort of cascaded from there. And I started to run my own business called Engine Mapper at the time.
Okay.
And so probably did the next, I think it was 3 or 4 years, tuning people's cars out on the roads at night, because you can't really do it during the rush hour or the daytime. So I was out at like 2 a.m. barreling down the dual carriageways, mapping Subarus and Evos and things like that.
Perfect job, it sounds to me.
It was interesting. It can be quite stressful. It can, depending on what the condition of the car is that turns up and what you're supposed to do with it. And I got to know a guy called Steve Simpson who kind of mentored me throughout some of that time. So we started working together because I can't remember how we met, but I think I ended up taking a car up here to him because it had an ECU on there that only he could do, and sat next to him and learnt how to do those things. And then he eventually sort of repaid the favour by asking me to help him do the Subaru America Isle of Man TT car, which is the picture in the bottom right hand corner. So that was the car that Mark Higgins drove across the Isle of Man for the first time to beat the record that was set by Tony Pond in the 80s with a Rover Vitesse. So that was really cool to be involved in, even just to say that I had my hands on it and did some stuff on it.
Definitely.
And then I was going to a local place called Group B Motorsport, and they were really interested in what I was doing. So they actually asked me, "Do I want a job there? Do I want to run their dyno?" And I said yes. Looking back on that, I kind of regret that decision, if I'm completely honest.
Love the honesty. Love the honesty.
But I got to do some really cool stuff, as you can see from the pictures. I tuned anything from standard road cars, RX-8s, Super Imprezas, all the way through to World Rally car Escort Cosworths, the Delta Integrales. There was a rotary powered Escort that they had there. This like time attack, 1,000 horsepower thing, and all sorts of stuff. So it was good, really good as an experience. But the guys there wanted to run it like a garage because they had a series of like Toyota dealers, Mazda dealers, that sort of thing. So they were trying to run it much more like a dealership than they were kind of a tuning shop. Mm-hmm. And I ended up having a lot less freedoms. I was really quite under pressure with a lot of stuff, so I didn't enjoy it as much as I felt that I would. Okay. So I ended up doing a very short spell in a company called Delphi Diesel Systems, and that was massive, 6,000 employees, big corporation. Not a great deal of motivation there, if I'm honest, from most of the staff. So that was really sort of quite not depressing, but not fun.
Yeah.
Being that I've only ever sort of been hands-on and in a small business, I just didn't enjoy the big sort of corporation vibe or corporate vibe.
Certainly makes sense. It's a completely different world and format of doing it, isn't it?
Massively,
it's chalk and cheese.
My boss there was really great. He was an amazing character, and in fact, I then a friend of mine shot a job advert for a company called Mugen on via Facebook, and I ended up applying for that role, and I got that role. And the boss at Delphi was really encouraging to me because he could see what I had done and how little the Delphi role kind of suited what I was about and what I liked doing. So he encouraged me out the door, basically. Probably he wanted rid of me because I was bored and itchy feet, as always. Anyway, so yeah, Mugen, amazing place. Would work there again at the drop of a hat, doing the projects that we were doing. So
looks exciting from the pictures alone. Definitely,
it was incredible. We had in the period of time that I was there, we had such a good team. And we covered the main project really was world touring cars for Honda, so it was a manufacturer-backed program.
Yeah.
With millions of pounds worth of money to develop their engine. And we were doing also things like World Superbike, British Superbike. We ended up, when World Touring Cars packed in, we ended up doing a series called TCR, which is now the replacement for World Touring Cars, which is now called WTCR.
Wow. Once again, with that passion you have of racing cars going through, I can see why this role you're looking in was so exciting for you. If you're at present doing so, what was the role there? So obviously, I know you've obviously positioned there. What was your role you were doing there?
Yeah, so I came in as a engine development engineer, or
Okay.
it was engine development engineer, I think it was, and ended up as design engineering manager, I think it was.
Nice.
Fundamentally, though, we as a team and well, the team was in charge with design, development, and test sign-off calibration of race engines that we produced that would go out into race cars. And I was in charge of the development element of that and some of the design element of that. And in the end, so for example, for World Touring Cars, when we got the engine, myself and one of the guys from Honda and Mugen were leading the sort of development choices and making design choices on what we would do next. So we were quite pivotal on making those choices to get us from where we were a kind of an average performing engine to a front of the grid performing engine. And it was similar with TCR. In fact, TCR, I think predominantly I led. So not only did I make the design decisions on the engine, but also did quite a lot of the calibration. We had a build team that did a lot of the engine build, and ended up going out and doing the tests as well to set the sort of launch control up and all the sort of software functions, pit limiter, that sort of stuff.
It's a full life cycle basically, which is fantastic. Obviously, do a lot of different things.
Birth to death on that project for me, because at the time Honda didn't have a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. We had to use the K20, which is the famous Type R K20 that went in Civics for many years. So we basically retrofitted that with turbocharger pistons and conrods and all sorts of stuff, and turned it into a really fantastic piece. So the bottom right hand corner is actually a 123 in Shanghai of the engine we produced, and basically the work we did from Mugen. So yeah, really proud of that. Absolutely,
fantastic job. Sounds perfect for you as well from what you've said that call. I can see the passion coming through.
And then in the end, so World Touring Cars finished because it was too expensive for a lot of manufacturers, and they turned it to TCR. TCR kind of dried up somewhat because Honda released the FK8 at the time, or FK7, I can't remember which, but the newer Type R, which was a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. We didn't need to do any development on it because it was a ready-built engine that they could drop into the cars and go and race with. So I ended up getting pimped out to Honda F1 to do battery development, and was working with those guys as well with a little bit of the ICE development. So did about a year doing that, and then ultimately ended up where I am now at Cosworth. And so I transitioned to off the back of sort of Mugen. In fact, the story goes, I was at the Honda F1 factory being contracted. They offered me a job.
Nice.
Mugen didn't like the fact that I was going to leave them and join Honda, so they blocked me going to Honda F1, which was really disappointing. So I needed to find myself another role somewhere else, because I obviously wasn't going to stay with the guys that decided they didn't want to allow me to sort of further my career within their own family.
Yeah.
Real shame, but anyway. So then, joined Delta as engineering manager, and started off sort of helping develop the business really, and then ultimately working with it was Nick Carpenter and Simon Dowson at the time, the two directors, privately owned business. So it was Delta Motorsport when I joined.
Okay.
And it was interesting because we had there was a bit of a struggle with the fact that Nick was quite, what's the best way to describe it? It was his train set and he didn't want other people playing with it, basically. So he wanted an engineering manager to come in, but I think he only wanted the engineering manager to do exactly what he needed them to do or wanted them to do.
To implement his ideas and things like that.
I was a bit more free thinking than that, and I think we had a bit of a struggle to begin with. So I kind of ended up taking some stuff off of Simon, which was a lot of the computer system IT work in the background, whilst trying to appease sort of Nick's wants and wishes to try and sort of move the company forwards. And as I did, I sort of radically changed the infrastructure behind the scenes. And then COVID hit, and suddenly all the work I've been doing that both Nick and Simon hadn't really appreciated became really important, because we could literally turn the company around from a physical on-site engineering business to number of engineers off-site and spin them up remote computer access and all that sort of stuff. And suddenly I was flavour to Nick, and he was much more relaxed about okay. You kind of know what you're doing.
Pushing the keys to his kingdom almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just started to work a lot better together, because I think there was that element of trust that they'd seen that I wasn't just mucking them out, and I was wanting to further the business as a whole. I was interested in making this business thrive regardless of what it was that I was doing, and trying to utilise my skills. Obviously, computing skills are one of those things I've maintained since doing it in university. So I can do that sort of stuff. Anyway, and then unfortunately Nick passed away just as we were going through the Cosworth acquisition. So Cosworth acquired us. It's now 3 years that we've been in part of Cosworth. I'm staggered every time I say that, because it feels like it was only 6 months ago when it happened.
Wow.
And so Cosworth acquired us, turned us into Delta Cosworth, and ever since we've been sort of on the back of the Cosworth journey, really.
Nice.
So that's kind of the story. And now I am development director. So I moved from engineering manager to development director, and my responsibility really at the moment is, like any director, a bit of jack of all trades, master of none. I think that's the best description for most directors. You're good at something because you've been promoted to that, but maybe you're not good at anything. You're just good at something, or lots of somethings. But the responsibilities now really are to bolster the other directors' responsibilities, to look after. I do all of our sort of in and out of house testing. I look after the production facilities, a couple of buildings we've got there. And also contribute to the general running of the business, so business processes, the engineering. We're developing a product called the cylindrical scalable module, which is part of what I'm there to do as well. So there's lots of different pies that got my fingers in, not necessarily just a focused sort of role at the moment, and mainly because we're still quite a small business comparatively. There's only about 75 staff in Delta Cosworth.
That's what you're doing. Obviously, I really appreciate it. I love the honesty. I like the fact you highlighted that there's some careers you made in your earlier move that might have not been the right ones for you, and on present there, and it's good the honesty to do that there, and it's fantastic to hear. It's refreshing, and it also shows that for any of our listeners that if it isn't, something doesn't work out for not the right move or whatever, it isn't quite right. There's actually nothing wrong with noticing that, being aware of it, and it still allows you to kick on in your career and where you get to. And obviously, with the director position you're in now, fantastic. And I know how passionate you are about Delta and Cosworth and the business moving forward. So fantastic. Okay.
You've got to make mistakes to learn what it is that you're good at, not good at, want or don't want. I think one of the things that coming out of university I thought was I would know exactly what I want to do, and it was quite the opposite. I hadn't got a Scooby what I really want to do. So you've got to work through it, and the quicker you work through it by making some mistakes and choosing the wrong things, the quicker you'll get to something that you really enjoy doing.
Okay, so section 3 is achievements.
Yep.
And this is where, for the question one, we ask you to give a few highlights of key things, products, or areas that you're particularly proud of, but also that might be of interest potentially to our listeners for things and to maybe do some further research and understanding around.
So most of my key achievements are probably, 2 of them were when I was at Mugen. It was one of the best parts of my career to date. Bar what I do here, and unfortunately I can't shout about a lot of the key achievements I've done at Delta Cosworth because a lot of it is confidential. Whereas a lot of the stuff at Mugen was very much in the public domain, so we were racing in front of an audience. World Touring Cars was probably my first being proud to take what was, like I say, a back of the field engine and turn it into something where we narrowly missed winning the championship in the last year that we did it. And it wasn't because of the engine, unfortunately. It was a number of other factors. So that was incredible because you can see the progression over the years that you've taken that on, and you can see the just the steps forwards, the development, the engineering process. And I cut my teeth doing that and really loved doing that. Secondly, bottom left-hand corner of this picture is the Isle of Man TT car that I described before when I was employed. Brilliant thing to be involved in. I mean, I literally only sat in the car on the dyno doing some stuff with the ECU.
Still key though. All makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So that I'm very proud of. Proud to be involved with, and really great to have the learnings from Steve Simpson, the guy that taught me and was sat next to me whilst we were doing that stuff. So, yeah, great mentor. And then the last one really was TCR. So, World Touring Cars. We'd gotten the engine to a really good place, and TCR then started to kick off as a subsidiary series. And it came to me to pretty much do the birth to death, as we spoke about before.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love the fact that we did the design of the engine in-house at Mugen. We built it, we developed it, we did all the electronics, we developed the ECU with the company that produced the hardware. So we did all the software bespoke for the engines. I went out and did all the testing and did a lot of the races. And the team, that we were working with at Mugen, that I was working with at Mugen, were fantastic, and we produced some really good results. Again, unfortunately, we didn't win the championship that year. I don't think we were ever destined to, because we were using an engine that wasn't really in the rules. So it probably wouldn't have allowed us to win the championship, if I'm completely honest with you. But it was a stonking motor, and it was as you see, 1T3 in Shanghai was fantastic. So we absolutely hit the nail on the head, and did it all with a very small team. Mugen was only 9 staff strong.
Wow.
So to do well,
doing a lot of different things, very compact team.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just shows how a high performing team can produce results. Look at Formula One now. I know they're very large companies, but they're high performing teams, and look at the results that they can produce in terms of the technology and the capability, and how reliable Formula One cars now are these days.
Yeah. When you were with any of these things, obviously, like Subaru or the track, were you ever trackside for, obviously when that gentleman broke the record? Did you get in the Isle of Man? Did you get the opportunity to be trackside, or did you have to watch from further afield?
No, I got the updates via text. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch it. Yeah, because it was the Isle of Man TT week, so it was during the bike racing, and I didn't have enough sort of notice to actually book myself to get across there for that. But what was quite interesting, maybe I shouldn't say this, but what was quite interesting was Mark Higgins was practicing in a Subaru road car the week before the Isle of Man TT.
Yeah.
And he was texting us with updates like, "Oh, I've just done 150 mile an hour across the mountain pass this week, covered this in, X amount of minutes, etc." So, it was good fun. But with Honda World Touring Cars, we flew around the world and did all the trackside support. And the same with TCR, we did the trackside support. And in fact, everyone will tell you that I get very bored racing. I'm more interested in development and testing. So with World Touring Cars and TCR, I was much more interested in test days, because you could actually develop stuff, change things, tweak things. Whereas on the race days, you're predominantly sort of looking after it and just making sure it goes in the way that you maintain it. So the guys used to get really frustrated with me on race weekends, because I would be forever trying to find something to do, or whatever it was. So in the end, I opted out of going to race weekends and only did testing, because I love the development, love the testing, and just hated the boredom of racing, to be honest. That wasn't the interest.
Consistent theme here coming through, though, isn't there, from before university, which is good to see, and the passion on doing it, which is great. But okay, fantastic. Yeah, great answer, and some really exciting stuff there, and I think some really good, interesting things for our listeners to potentially research further. So I'll move forward into the next section, which is always probably one of my favourites, is the learnings.
Yes, absolutely.
So I suppose if you could look back now and meet yourself at an earlier age, maybe 18 to 21, I
Yeah.
suppose, what things do you wish you knew then that you now know that you think would be advantageous for our listeners? And then obviously
Yeah.
the follow-up question on top of that, which I always get do with it, is what would your golden nugget be? So obviously I'll let you do the first one and then the golden nugget can follow.
Yeah, so my learnings probably are be confident in your abilities and skills. I think one of the things that I see a lot in graduates is that they're not very confident, or the opposite, which is they can be very cocky. I think you just need confidence in what you're able to do, and in the things that you're not able to do, you need to sort of just be able to learn to absorb that. So learning from others is another way to well, another one of my learnings is,
Hmm.
I'm a sponge. I soak information and learnings really quickly.
Hmm.
Um, so, for example, working with Steve Simpson when I was starting to map engines and cars taught me a huge amount. To the extent where Steve would probably say nowadays I taught him some stuff as well, because I was sort of aggressively trying to learn more and more, and therefore going out and doing lots more research and sort of really challenging him on what he was doing. Be happy to make mistakes. It's the
Yeah.
only way you learn. Like we said about sort of my choice in education and then in career, I made a mistake in my education. I made a mistake in my career. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. And in fact, actually, some of the best things that come out of engineering are due to some
So
of the worst things. Failure, accepting failure, and embracing failure. It's awful if it involves people's lives. Of course it is, but
obviously.
it's part of the learning, and it's part of what we have to do as engineers is to take those failures and turn them into successes. Really.
I don't have the fear to fail as well, isn't it? I know it's important to do that there. I always feel like, especially previous generations, when you were younger and current, it's like everyone, the failure is seen as like a bad thing on doing it. But actually, as long as it's pushing you, trying something new and it's improving you one way or another, actually, people seem to improve the most from my experience. What I've seen is when they are failing, it seems to like press on it more and doing it. So yeah, don't be scared to try things that
Yeah.
ultimately that don't lead to the result you were hoping for, because as long as you're improving and developing, then that's the key, especially early in your career.
There's a very fine line between being brazen with your choices versus being brave with the choices that you make, and you've got to be careful because obviously
Hmm.
some of the choices can be quite disastrous, potentially. But yeah, I think you've got to be not afraid of failure, but you've got to be cautious to the decisions you do make. But yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, it's part of the learning. It's part of engineering at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Um, happy to make strong and hard decisions. You can't appease everyone. So some decisions will be hard that you make going throughout your career. So when you talk about when I talk about dropping my university degree, my parents were horrified. But that's a hard decision. It's something that you need to do for yourself. So
Hmm.
make sure that you're happy and you can do that. And similarly, moving towns. So moving from where I was in Wrexham in Glyndŵr to Delphi diesel systems down in Chatham in Kent is a massive
Hmm.
move. To only be there 6 months, to then move again into Milton Keynes. These are big sort of life
Relocations.
changes. Yeah, absolutely. So, but I knew I had to make those decisions, and I knew it was going to be hard. So, and I can't appease everybody, so I've got to do it for myself. And it's the same in work and management. Sometimes you will make hard decisions that in the short term will upset some people, but in the long term will mean that they have a better career, better life, better whatever it is. So yeah, absolutely. And then I suppose the last thing is no one cares about your career more than yourself.
Fantastic. Okay,
It's,
yeah,
it's a
fantastic.
stupid thing. It's so selfish, isn't it? But it is absolutely true. You'll get great managers that do care about, progressing you, but everyone's in it to do what they want for themselves, aren't they?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as selfless as people are, they are. We're all here aspirationally wanting to progress ourselves. So you've got to be able to communicate what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Hmm.
If you don't, if you don't know, that's okay, but you talk about it. So I suppose a lot of my advice to younger generations of engineers would be try to be as communicative as you can with your manager. Good managers take on board criticism, they take on board advice, they take on board your unsureness, your sureness, your all the things you feel as you're going through your career, and they try to turn that into something very positive and try to help you progress in your career. So I think it's really important that you don't just look upon your manager as the person that's paying you, but you look upon them as a mentor, you look upon them as a a colleague and a friend potentially. So just try to utilize the fact that they're there to support you, I suppose, is a good.
It's that sponge thing, isn't it? Learn from them, do it, and then obviously try and communicate with them that if you don't have any idea where your career may be at this time, maybe ask them for some advice. And if you do have an idea, yeah, which is all few points that comes around that communication, which is I certainly agree with you, which is fantastic. I think four real good points there. And what I like is that I've not heard on the podcast before on doing it, especially the honesty once again about the career. And obviously, no one cares more than about your own career than yourself. I think that is an honest, definitely thing, which is fantastic, which not many people probably often will say, but I think that's a fantastic learning for people to take on board. And so, following on from those, then, because that's four real good pieces of advice, if you could go back and only give yourself one piece of advice, it's like I always like to say the golden nugget. What's your golden nugget of advice?
So need to be sure that you know what you are doing, I suppose. So I suppose this is again a bit of the have some confidence about the choices that you're making, have some confidence about where you're going. So many people who enter the field are unsure of what they are doing, need the confidence to sort of go in the right direction. So I think it's having that confidence to make the wrong decision to find out the right one. I think that is the golden nugget, is you've got to be brave to be, to get things done quicker, to understand things better, to, fail faster. Again, there's a difference between cockiness and, braveness, but yeah, I think you've got to put yourself out there sometimes. So definitely that's my golden nugget would just be bring more confidence, bring more decisive ability, and learn faster, fail faster.
Okay, fantastic. So this next question, I guess, there is there anything potentially you would have done differently in your career, or you might change now? You can look back and have a bit of hindsight.
Yes. So conversely, in Mugen, I think a lot of the guys there of the small team would have found me quite difficult to work with, and that's the honest answer. As a manager, I was quite challenging, mainly because I was so focused and determined on winning races, really, and developing what we were developing at the time. I probably managed people at the detriment of their thoughts and their abilities potentially. So, I think I would look back and say, no, actually, I should have taken more time to spend more time with them to learn a bit more about them. And now as a manager, I'm a bit more, open, empathetic to that, because you can't kind of force your way or bully your way through your own career and expect it not to have a detrimental effect to other people. Don't get me wrong, I'm still friends with the guys from Mugen, and we still hang out and stuff, but I know I was a pain in the bum when I was working there because of this laser-focused determination to get to where we needed to go.
Almost like tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision. Yeah, I mean, I tell the story very regularly that I would, because I lived 5 minutes walk away from Mugen in Milton Keynes, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd think of something that needed to be done to improve the engine or to solve a problem or whatever. I'd go in and I'd start running the dyno at like 3 a.m. And they come into work and be like, "What the hell are you doing here so early?" So that obviously.
But it's a passion, isn't it? I know, but it's a passion. It's an obsession on the comes of doing it. And you were earlier in your career. I don't think I've spoken to a senior manager as of yet who hasn't made mistakes in their earlier career and doing it. The fact you can acknowledge that is fantastic. And I also think we need to appreciate, which the listeners won't. But doing it, society has changed a lot in management style. If you're looking back at the way it was previously and earlier on in my career, the styles and approach and that thing, it's definitely a new, from what I personally think, a newer thing that's coming in the last 10 or so years, maybe a bit sooner on doing it. So there's that bit of both there as well. I love the honesty again, but also don't think you should be overly harsh on yourself.
I'm not too harsh. We got good success, so I can't complain too much.
Perfect. And great. Once again, great honest answer, and I love the way you can look back and be quite self-critical of yourself in times, which is great acknowledgement and great advice there as a tip. Anyone a manager can do that. Moving on to our next section then, which is over to you, which is typically where we allow our guests to discuss a particular topic or a particular thing in the industry they're passionate about. And I know you have got a particular thing you want to talk about today, which I'll let you introduce to our listeners rather than myself.
Yeah, so I thought I'd give everybody a bit of a rundown on Cosworth, really, because I think that's important for you to understand what we do. What the business does for us. So, yeah, who are we? Well, Cosworth is a section of 3 independent facilities across the UK and some in the United States as well. We've got 3 core businesses in the UK. The first one is electronics. So they're based in Cottenham, so Cosworth Electronics, which is all about electronic development for not only motorsport but automotive, as well as many other areas of sort of automotive performance. So, for example, on this picture that you've got here, we've got the Corvette, the GM Corvette in the background, which is actually the software. The PDR software that Cosworth Electronics provide to them gets fitted to all the Corvette vehicles.
Nice.
We also do a product called Diablo, which is wind tunnel software and hardware, which is used pretty much by all the F1 teams to control their wind tunnel systems currently.
Wow.
So there's a real mix. I should also add, of course, the ECUs and the steering wheels, which are used in LMP cars, WRC, Porsche, IndyCar. So there's loads of stuff that electronics do, and they've got a massive skill set there, which is incredible. Then we have Northampton Powertrain, which is literally in the centre of Northampton, so just literally up the road from where I live. And these guys you would know from, if you know the brand Cosworth, you classically think of probably the DFV F1 engine, or something of that ilk, one of the F1 or motorsport engines. Well, nowadays they spend most of their time doing automotive projects, with some aerospace as well. But things like the Valkyrie engine were done by Cosworth.
Nice.
Gordon Murray, they did the machining for the Honda NSX supercar. So yeah, lots of stuff going on that you don't necessarily see in the public eye because they're less, I guess, public branded.
The rules of tier ones, isn't it? When you're a tier one supplier, sometimes it's going to the overall OEM or the different press on doing it. But yeah, no, fantastic branding. Certainly for any powertrain heads on doing it, there's 3 fantastic vehicles alone that you guys have designed those systems for. So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then us, so Delta Cosworth, which is the next one. So the next slide really is a sort of an example of something that Delta Cosworth does. So we're predominantly into high performance. Well, anything Cosworth is normally high performance, as you might expect. But Delta Cosworth, where I work, does high performance battery systems. So we're asked to do something challenging or something that you would deem impossible. So this is a good example of a small car battery. So this is about the size of the base of a vehicle, but producing 880 kilowatts. So that's over 1,000 horsepower of power available, 70 kilowatt hour energy capacity, and about 570 kilos. So it's a good example of what we would develop, and we develop the battery system, the electronics, the battery management system, and then integrate that into a vehicle.
Fantastic.
Some other battery projects that are on the next slide. So we've done the one that's out in the public eye really is the British touring cars. So we do the hybrid, as Cosworth as a whole, we do the hybrid system that goes into the British touring cars. Delta Cosworth does the battery system itself. Cosworth Electronics actually do the control systems and the motor and the other bits to it. And then you've got a couple of other battery examples there, which would be a hybrid pack that goes in a van, that transit van you can see. And there's a 1 megawatt capable automotive pack that's for a big German OEM.
Wow.
That was used for vehicle dynamics development in one of their test cars. So that's an incredible piece of kit. And again, that's the type of project we would take on. Would be something hard to do, difficult to achieve, high performance, mind blowing, that sort of thing.
Between all the different groups as well, you're covering all the different aspects, aren't you? Which you should be highlighting there. Literally between, I know you've got the separate companies within that probably all fall under the same group, but you were all covering and you all, can all come together for projects, which is a way that a lot of the tier one market is going now, or has been doing for a period of time. But obviously, you guys have been ahead of the curve on that, and there's some fantastic projects there certainly that if our listeners looking to further, will probably really excite them.
Yeah, well, if you consider that and in fact we'll come to it in a minute, but Delta Cosworth does vehicle systems as a whole as well. Add that with Cosworth Powertrain and the ICE combustion engines, we can do a hybrid, battery pack as well as the integration into a vehicle, and then the electronics can obviously come from Cosworth Electronics. Any number of whether that's dashboard, steering wheel, display, everything. So yeah, we've got from end to end we can do.
Wow.
So the next slide is then something that I think a lot of people steer away from, don't like to talk about. So this is about failing, but failing in a way that we're trying to learn more information about the safe way of handling batteries. So we deliberately force batteries to fail. We deliberately test for failures based on the certification requirements that you need to pass to build high performance batteries that are capable of doing what they need to be doing, really. So part of the fun of that is that you get to see all this interesting technology be pushed to its absolute limits, and you see how it fails, and you understand a lot more about it and how you might then mitigate those failures in the future. So yeah, fundamentally we blow up batteries as well, which is good fun.
Exciting. And you obviously have that facility on your site as well, don't you, to do that? This is all in-house, which is another lovely little perk. Okay,
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah, and then the last bit of the puzzle, like I was saying before, is vehicle systems integration. So Delta Cosworth is able to do the package from start to finish. We're low volume, so we'll never do sort of thousands off, but we can do tens off, and hundreds off potentially. But we can take anything from an ICE vehicle and design it from the ground up, all the way to an electric vehicle powertrain or a hybrid propulsion system, or any of those things we can sort of put together, and our design team is able to manage a solution for a customer. So good examples of that would be, we recently did a run of the Hennessy Venom F5 vehicles, which are a hypercar IC platform. So it's 1800 horsepower, twin turbo supercar that gets sold in the United States via Hennessy Performance. So we did the design and development of the chassis monocoque, the suspension, the driver, seating, infotainment, interior, everything.
Wow.
And then we built it on site and developed the car. So
fantastic.
End to end.
End to end, which is always a fantastic solution. The fact that literally you're on the cutting edge of all the latest technology, being involved in those projects as well, which is very key in those fields. It's not just electrification. You said you're on the fuel cell capability and the batteries. So yeah, certainly an exciting place to work from what I can see looking from the outside in, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Well, obviously, thank you very much for the overview there. And literally, it's great to see the overview thing on Delta we discussed more. I suppose moving on to the next section then, which is our technical tips, which is for our younger listeners. I suppose just to get your insights and thoughts, that if you're looking to the future or the long term, are there any areas across the EE technical spectrum or the automotive spectrum that you think people should either specialise in because it offers a good career, or secondly, that they have to be aware of because it's going to impact all areas of the automotive field?
So I guess the main thing that I would say is that when you look at the electrification field versus sort of the conventional mechanical engineering field, there's a lot of cross-pollination that you don't realise is a skill that you can carry on. So mechanical design engineers don't need to know about batteries. They will learn a lot of points on batteries by doing the job, but you can take those skills and they are very much cross-compatible to sort of battery design and or electric vehicle design. So a key factor there would be perhaps not to worry about, if you're thinking about wanting to try and get into E&E as a field, don't worry about the fact that you've only been a mechanical engineer, as a kind of, I was an ICE engineer for many years before I jumped into battery and electrification. and that's not hindered me to
Yeah.
be able to produce what I needed to produce. Controls and software are a key area. That more and more vehicles are going to need more and more software. They're going to need more and more control software, hardware. All those types of things. So that's massive area that's just going to keep growing. And same with electronics. Absolutely, it's part of the key for the future. So electronics teams and E&E teams are going to get bigger and bigger, along with the controls and software teams that will just continue to grow. So yeah.
Perfect. I also like the fact you said there as well, because that can be quite misleading at times. And with it being like electrification of electronics, it could suggest sometimes that the skills of mechanical engineers are going to die out. They're not. They're still going to be just as critical. They're slightly changed on what that is. But yeah, I'm glad that you highlighted that, because if I was certainly a mechanical engineer, I'd be like, if it's got electrification, have I got a future doing it? But you have. It's just that the terminology from that comment seems to suggest and put it off. And yeah, there's definitely a huge vast and scope for that market as well.
Yeah, I'd say that the biggest thing that people think when they're looking at jobs in the sector would be, well, I don't know anything about electronics, or I don't know anything about current flow and how a battery works. And it's actually much more simple than you think it is. And there's design rules that cover quite a lot of the standards and how you should design for and what you should design for. So I think actually it's very easy to hop from one industry to another and learn those skills.
Of course, and that's all also suggested by the way that the automotive industry's changed slightly now, hasn't it? I've been told previously before that combustion engines were very, very, very complex piece of kit to press on doing it. With the electric battery and powertrain system coming, obviously they're still complex, but it's kind of like what's the word, made it where it's a more of a consistent platform on doing it. So that's why we're seeing innovations in other areas of the car and doing that now. Just a viewpoint on pressing point on that, and that's why other players are coming in so frequently. I don't know. Do you agree with that viewpoint, or is that?
So I think ICE engines are complicated, but I think they're made simple by the fact that we've got a lot of experience in the field.
Yeah.
So I could draw on lots and lots of known experiences in development of motorsport engines, because there was lots of knowledge out there. There's lots of software and capabilities that you can draw on. I think batteries and electrification is a bit harder because there's less people trained in it. I mean, it's getting better now, and there's less software options. There's less design tools that help you with that. And the architectures of batteries are not defined, or at least there's not really a standard for them yet.
Yeah.
The exciting bit about the job for me is that we are working through things that are new. They're not known. We're pushing the boundary of technology. So I would always say that I think to say one thing is easier than the other is probably never the case. It's always it's a different discipline. It's a different set of skills, and it's a different idea and a different understanding. So we've got 140 years in the ICE. We've got a lot less than that in batteries. So they might be slightly simpler to put together, but they're probably in my view, they're quite a lot more complex to understand. To get right. So.
And a lot of space probably to improve still, isn't there? And
absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, well, fantastic viewpoint. Moving on to our next section is industry outlook. So I suppose, what is up and coming in the industry in your viewpoint? And I mean automotive industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's interesting because a lot of people at the moment, I think, are very negative on their view about battery and electrification, mainly because of fires. Every car fire now seems to be attributed to, it's an electric vehicle. It must be the battery. Oh, it's this. Anyway, look at the stats on how many. So, for example, I think the London Fire Brigade, I had a quick look at this year as to how many fires they get called out for automotive wise and what that's to do with. And it's something like 90% is ICE related car fires versus 10% which is EV related and or others. So anyway, that's one thing that I would say is that I think we as an industry we are challenged always about this ideology around how safe batteries are, and they can be incredibly safe. Mm-hmm. It's a different type of stored energy than a fuel tank. So sure, there's different things you've got to consider.
Definitely.
What's coming up for the industry? Well, it's interesting because the government push was always for battery electric vehicles. That's why we are where we are at the moment, which is we're doing a lot in batteries. So for Delta, actually, we're so agnostic to the propulsion method. We're quite capable of picking up whatever the propulsion method is going to be next. So we've done projects with hydrogen fuel cells. We've done projects with different types of power generation. So I think the industry is going to be really interesting over the next few years because battery electric suits some fields of the industry, and then doesn't suit others altogether, which need to find other renewable methods of powering their fleet of vehicles. So you're going to end up with this eclectic mix of all sorts of things that solve problems.
Yeah.
Which mean that it's exciting because you don't have the same thing as the same solution for all of them. So where an ICE engine would fit in a dumper truck as well as a digger, as well as a van, as well as a car, you're going to get something that's battery electric in a vehicle, and then might need to be something completely different if you're flying the thing or you're whatever it is. So I love that. I think that's the exciting bit of the industry, and that's the bit that is the innovative area, because we don't know what the answer is, and with this sort of mandate from the government of what it should be as an answer versus actually what does engineering say is the true answer to this problem, we're going to find that solution at some point where we're going, okay, this is what works in this field, this industry, this is what works for this. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and I certainly agree. It's going to be a mix of different approaches for different solutions, and if anything, it's shows how great really the combustion engine was previously, but apart from the damage to the world, because it actually solved so many solutions across so many different industries. Everyone doing it, and now we're moving away, obviously due to reasons for the environment. Actually, the gap that it's left is not one solution that's going to be able to fix all as of yet, so it seems. So I certainly agree with you. Depending on what the usage, what the vehicle is, what the average miles are, it will be a mix of different solutions, which is great, because part of the reason why the vehicle or automotive industry is going through probably one of the biggest innovations of its history, but also exciting and challenges there to be had globally for all governments and all places. So it's a very exciting place to be, definitely.
Consider that the automotive industry is probably one of the industries that's quite far ahead of some of the others, and how much innovation still has to happen for some of the other industries that we haven't touched on yet.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
future mobility as a whole, but they are starting. Obviously, I know aerospace is starting to move, and I just know from the industry I work in, marine is starting to move quite quickly as well. But it was still come from the automotive vehicle first, didn't it? But certainly, and that whole infrastructure and how it all creates around it, we're just at the beginning of the journey, really. So it's very exciting times, which is great. Absolutely. I suppose. Next question for me, because I always like to do the good and the potential bad, so our listeners can have a full 360 view. Is there anything, in your opinion, that is a threat to the sector or could negatively impact the sector and slow these projects moving forward?
Actually, I suppose my comment on people's negative sort of viewpoints on battery electric is absolutely impacting the sector and how people buy vehicles. Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. I think, for many years, the UK and Europe have been moving to the services field. So we've been moving away from manufacturing because we've been pushing it out to China, Taiwan, etc. So now a lot of the batteries come from there because they have the capabilities, the raw materials, the manufacturing environments. And actually, we're realizing that produces a lot of CO2. It produces a lot of harmful environment impact that we can't sort of negate for many years after building these things. And even though we're setting up factories in the UK, or trying to set up factories in the UK to build these things, we're struggling. You can see from the fact that some of the recent innovative companies that have been building cells have had to close down because there isn't the backing, there isn't the funding, or there isn't the will for it to continue. So the massive threat for me, I suppose, to make it really sustainable is that local manufacturing needs to happen in whatever it is that we're doing. Yeah, so it has to be, and even to the extent where I spoke to a Chinese cell manufacturer who were over assessing what they were doing kind of in the European market, and I asked them what their plans were, and they said, well, we've just built a factory in one of the European cities, but actually it was so painful, we probably won't do it again because we can put one up in China in 6 months, whereas it took us years to build it in Europe because of all the red tape. So yes, okay, there's the counter argument, which is probably China has no regulations
Yeah,
comparative to Europe, but there is a compromise there in respect of encourage people to come and do what they need to do in our countries, and they might find it a little bit easier to bolster the manufacturing industry. So I think that's a massive threat. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And it's not just the automotive industry. Obviously, it's a government press problem
Yeah,
on doing it. It's almost like a mindset thing. Because I've had someone else raise a similar problem, but on one other podcast, but just talking about the way we're developing and innovating cars now and the speed that these newer economies are moving into it, where there's, as you said, there's not as much red tape, it seems, because they're aware they need to catch, they're less adverse to risk and
yeah,
those kind of things there. So it's almost like a mindset that needs to change and hopefully needs to change quickly, because if it
yeah.
doesn't, it could definitely prevent the European businesses innovating and moving forward as quick as they would like. So fantastic viewpoint, definitely, and I certainly agree. Um, Last question then. Obviously, the skill sets that Delta are looking for, or the skill sets that in your career, anyone across the automotive industry are looking for, these candidates can go into semiconductor, aerospace, marine, medical devices.
Yep.
From your personal viewpoint, why do you think people should choose a career in the automotive field?
Well, like you say, cross compatible skills is a huge point. Like we've touched on the fact that you don't you don't have to be an automotive engineer to jump into automotive engineering, and vice versa. You can jump into automotive engineering, and a lot of their skills are you know cross usable elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Project turnaround, so tangibility. A lot of people say to me that they like the fact that you have something in your hands in a short amount of time compared to other industries. So that's really good. Our projects, in fact, for sort of prototypes, can be less than 12 months, but
Yeah,
typically are 12 to 18 months, and then you've got something that you've produced, which is really good to see. People like the seeing the end product of what they've designed and
definitely.
manufactured. And then probably it's strong, secure market in the UK. That's not likely to change. There's plenty of automotive supply chain. There's plenty of motorsport supply chain,
Definitely.
actually, which is the other element of it. So as motorsport goes more electric, there's going to be more involvement in that. And the international network is incredible as well. There's lots of places you can end up working with and or for as a part of the industry. So yeah, I think it's a great place to work.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, if people are in for travelling now, the International Network of Automotive, it's probably one of the strongest. I've done that there. And I also really like the point that you raised around the turnaround in from seeing a product from design to integration to the systems. It's definitely probably one of the quickest now, especially in the safety critical fields, isn't it? In medical, aerospace is trying to improve, but they're longer cycles just because they almost have to be. So yeah, certainly. Okay, well, fantastic. And yeah, I think you've raised some fantastic viewpoints there, which is great. And from my viewpoint, obviously, thank you for giving up your time to doing that there. I know, lastly, just because we've done a bit of an overview of Delta, that you guys are always looking to hire and grow for specialist engineers. So on this one, you guys are going to look to do a bit of an overview on a bit more detail on what you're looking for and what the business is. So I suppose, do you want to give our listeners an overview of what you guys are doing at the moment and potential
Just
employment opportunities?
Yeah, current career opportunities is kind of what I wanted to touch on. So just why you should work for Cosworth. So I've kind of put this slide together to suggest the perks of working. So we're not a massive company. We don't have some of the strong perks that you might get in a big corporation, but we definitely do have some good perks. 25 days holiday, workplace pension, private healthcare, all that sort of stuff, which is great. We do a lot of hybrid working now. I'm sat at home rather than in the office currently, so that's good. And then really our current roles. So you can go on currentopportunities.cosworth.com and you can have a look at what we've got across the three businesses. I've just pulled the three roles that we've got at Delta Cosworth up as an example.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we're interested in a development engineer, which is actually in the team that I run. So that would be involved in blowing up batteries, as we've spoken about, testing batteries, developing batteries, along with other mechanical systems as well. So yeah, very much heavily involved in sort of building our future. We also want a senior electrical and electronic design engineer. We said before, the E&E department is always going to get bigger the more we do, so that's what's happening. And software, we were talking about that before, weren't we? The fact that that's an expanding role. So again, we pretty much have a controls engineer opportunity out most of the time. We build our own battery management system, the software for the hardware as well. So we've got an ever expanding team that needs to be fed there to serve our own purpose and needs really. So yeah, the more we get, the bigger we'll grow. But welcome to obviously have a scoot through the Cosworth website and see what other opportunities that are there. We have obviously powertrain opportunities and electronics opportunities there, but these are the three that I've sort of selfishly pulled out for Delta Cosworth, of course.
You're doing the time for the podcast, so it makes complete sense. I'll be doing the same. And just for all listeners, what I'll do in the comments, there'll be access to the careers page. I'll give information needed there if anyone wants to apply or engage. So yeah, please check the comments for the podcast. And says that wraps us up. Literally, thank you so much for your time. It's been a fantastic having you on. I think the presentation was fantastic and very, very engaging and very, very interesting on his story. So just thank you so much for spending the time to get behind the incentive. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed having you on today.
No, thanks, Luke. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Been good fun. So yeah, thanks for talking to me.
No worries. Take care. Thank you.
See you later.